All right, folks, let's talk about what's going on in California. We got California on the line. California, thanks for joining us. California? California? I think they lost their power. They must have, can't call in. I don't know. Yeah, we've got up to 3 million Californians who are going to lose their power as you now have the power company there, PG&E, California's largest utility and their bankrupt utility, has now decided that they're going to start shutting off power beginning yesterday. 800,000 homes, they said, and of course that's going to represent about 3 million people. And why'd they do it? Oh, because of windy weather. Hold it. Windy weather and heat. Now, these are the people who decided that they would base their power on solar power and wind power. But when it's blowing, when the wind is blowing, we got to shut the power grid down, right? Because this bankrupt utility can't be bothered to make safe power distribution infrastructure. That's really what we're talking about here, right? California's largest and bankrupt utility began shutting off power yesterday. Because of windy weather, they think that the economic impact may reach $2.6 billion. 500,000 homes and businesses in Northern California have already lost power as PG&E orchestrates the biggest ever intentional power shutoff to keep its lines from sparking blazes. So they can't build power distribution infrastructure that doesn't spark blazes. And this is typical of what we're seeing across this country, especially in the Democrat areas. A lack of investment in an infrastructure as they began subsidizing self-driving cars and other things like that. Because, you know, we can't be allowed to actually have an infrastructure that is provided by the government anymore. They're not going to provide those services for us. Just don't have the money. And utility companies there in California are bankrupt. Never before have they intentionally cut power to so many for so long. About 15% of the utility company customers may go dark. A lot of areas like the Napa Wine Valley area is also going to go dark. And you had a California State Senator, Jerry Hill, who said, this cannot be something that is acceptable, nor long-term. This is third world, and we are not. Oh, yes, you are. Oh, yes, you are. And you're desperate to be third world. You've incentivized people from the third world to come in. And, of course, California's policies are turning its infrastructure into a third world type of infrastructure. How is this possible? You know, you have had in the past, and of course, here's another aspect of the third world, right? As power is being turned off to small businesses and homes all across, and farms all across California, guess who's not getting their power turned off? The big tech companies and their headquarters, they still have power. Now, we're told by Wired magazine, well, you know, don't get upset about that. It may look like, you know, when you look at Tesla, take Tesla, for example, says Wired. It looks like whatever the power outage version of gerrymandering would be. But don't get upset. Don't get upset. Because, you know, Tesla and these big companies, they get their power delivered directly to them via high power lines, and they build those properly. It's just the ones that are going through neighborhoods and small towns and small businesses and rural areas that the utility company doesn't really care about it. You know, there's, stick a pole up there, string a couple of wires, that's good enough, we're done. They're not going to bury the power lines, even though that they know that this is something that's caused fires in the past. No, the solution is not to build the infrastructure. The solution is to just turn it off. That's Democrats for you. Big commercial companies like tech headquarters tend to be located closer to the bulk transmission system and the high voltage lines, which are less impacted by this outage. Because it's not the little dangling overhead lines like you see in neighborhoods, you know. You can't put them under the ground, of course, right? No, these are built to higher standards, and they can take it. So that's part of it, but then there's another aspect to this as well. Going back, again, a couple of years ago, people at the time were talking about rolling blackouts. You've heard that, right? Rolling blackouts in California. I mean, could it be that maybe that is a factor here as much as the winds? Maybe the fact that They not only have not built the infrastructure that they need in California, but maybe they have been shutting down the sources of power generation so they don't have enough to go around. Would that be part of it too, maybe? Well, if that's not a part of what's going on right now, it is a part of the bigger picture in California. As one article put it, the Institute for Energy Research 3 years ago said California's self-inflicted energy shortage. Talking about how they were shutting down coal generation, they were shutting down natural gas, they're shutting down nuclear. They don't want anything but solar power and wind power. And as they pointed out in conclusion, they say California's utility system is so tight, so complex, that it's vulnerable to rolling blackouts if only part of the system is down. And they had natural gas facility at one point in time that was having problems, and they don't want to fix the problems with the natural gas. They don't want to fix it with the coal plants. They don't want clean coal. They don't want clean gas. They don't want to make it clean. They don't want to make the transmission lines safer. Instead, they just want to build sustainable energy. So they have renewable mandates throughout California. 2 years ago, we had the LA Times talking about the conundrum that this has created for California. California invested heavily in solar, and now there's so much that other states are being paid to take it. Think about that. They malinvested government money so heavily in solar that they've got a glut of solar while they're having rolling blackouts. How could that be? Well, because the geniuses there in California haven't figured out how to hook it up in all cases to the power grid to actually deliver it. Again, another infrastructure issue. And so what they're doing, I said, we actually paid Arizona to take excess electricity the residents were not using for 14 days during March, said the LA Times back in June of 2017. So for 2 weeks, they paid Arizona to take excess electricity from them. They said it happened for 8 days in January, 9 days in February, and then 14 days in March. They said California has also paid other states to take power from them. Solar and wind power production was curtailed a relatively small amount, about 3% in the first quarter of 2017, but it's more than double the same amount they had a year earlier. So why, if they got so much excess power that they're paying other people to take it away from them, how can they have these rolling blackouts? And it's even worse than that. They said, even though they've got a glut of power from solar, rates have risen faster in California than in the rest of the U.S., and Californians now pay about 50% more than the national average. How could this be? One word: Democrats. Democrats and environmentalists are doing this. A couple of years ago, I did a report about this, talking about when you shut down the grid, because they talk about it. They say, look, you can't provide solid state power for the grid. You don't have a big enough battery to save all of this solar power. And so what happens is you actually have to cycle the, what they call the fossil fuel plants, natural gas, which can be very clean, coal, which can be very clean. But they have to be cycled up and down to take care of the surges in the power grid. Do you have that video so you can show people what that looks like? And go ahead and roll that as B-roll. So what happens is, it's kind of like when you go through a town. There you go. There's the wind power, and it's going to vary. Now, they don't change in terms of the speed, as you see there. That's a representation. But, of course, the solar does. And when that is varying, what they have to do is they have to cycle the fossil fuel plant up and down. And you can see that fossil fuel plant going up and down as the renewable energy is not steady state. And that has the same effect as if you were stopping at stoplights with your car, idling for a long period of time, and then having to accelerate. You know, when the light turns green, you use more fuel. Well, that's what's happening in California. Brilliant. That is environmentalism at work right there in California. Welcome back. You know, it's not just the havoc that has been wreaked on the electrical system in California from environmentalist policies that have been taken to heart in California. There, they are true believers in it. And just as they have welcomed massive numbers of people from Central America, they have now brought in the same kind of infrastructure that you see in third world countries as well, just to make them feel at home, rolling blackouts and so forth. And when you look at this, as one individual and Popular Science even said, California's massive power outage is a wake-up call for the whole country. It's not just the electrical system. All the infrastructure is connected. That means other systems like water distribution, hospitals, roads, they're all under the assumption that you're going to have a working power grid. And when the power grid is down, all of those systems go down as well. It's one of the reasons why you need to prepare. Because the people who are supposed to provide us with an infrastructure don't even want to build roads. They don't want to maintain power generation. They don't want to, even when they are shutting down traditional power generation and ramping up with solar power, they can't be bothered to actually hook the solar power up in a way that they can use it. So California is paying people to take excess solar power. They have utility rates that are 50% higher than the rest of the country, and brownouts and blackouts. And I don't know if this whole thing about being concerned about the possibility of fires starting to happen, it seems to me like you would wait until there was actually a fire and then you would shut the power to it. But no, if it's windy, now we're going to shut down the power grid. Well, when the winds stop blowing, where are you going to get your solar power? None of this makes any sense, does it? Unless you realize that their purpose is to essentially shut down the country, shut down our power infrastructure, and to make us dependent on the government as they impose a false austerity on us, one that is not needed. And they're even going after toilet paper. You know, these same people now talk about an SHTF scenario. They're going after toilet paper. After shutting down our 3-gallon flush toilets, now these people are trying to squeeze the Charmin. They're very upset with Procter & Gamble. I said, you can't make toilet paper out of trees. So I guess we're going to go back to corn cobs because we can't, we're not going to subsidize the ethanol business anymore. We're going to give them a new profit center. This is absolutely insane. You know, as we were leaving for vacation out of Austin, my wife and I were parked at a traffic light. And as we were stopped, the traffic coming the other direction off to our right, they had 2 buses. One of them, a double-wide bus. So you've got, you know, how they call them in the UK, they call them bendy buses. But you've got an articulated bus, 2 lengths long and 1 driver, and then behind that, another bus. And before they took off, I said to my wife, I said, watch. There's not going to be a single person in those buses except for the drivers. And sure enough, as they turned left in front of us, there wasn't a single person on any of those 3 buses. There it is, yeah, one of those. So they had 1 driver for the double bus, the bendy bus, and then they had 1 driver for the other one. So I guess the goal is they can get electric buses that will be fully autonomous, and then you won't have to have any people on board them. They can just start circling around as long as the power generation hasn't been shut down, because then how are you going to charge those electric buses? We'll be right back, and we'll talk about what's going on with the self-driving cars in the bigger context, of the rent everything economy. We'll be right back.
Our powerful line of fluoride-free products is the perfect gift for yourself or others who are exploring a healthier, happier lifestyle. With options ranging from toothpaste to oral spray, it's easy to find the perfect option for you. Super Blue Toothpaste is the fan-favorite fluoride-free toothpaste that every InfoWarrior loves. Powered by iodine and nano silver, it's designed to deliver a powerful clean while supporting good oral health and fresh breath. Available in 2 refreshing flavors. Enjoy a minty fresh flavor made with peppermint oil, or try our bubblegum flavor. Super Blue Immune Gargle is the only option for on-the-go immune system support like no other. With the scientifically proven patented ingredient Silver Sol in 3 different sizes, you can take it wherever you go. Support good oral health with our one-of-a-kind Super Blue products. Don't miss out on revolutionizing your morning routine. Head to InfoWarsStore.com and get our line of Super Blue products today.